Here we are, back at the WeFunder house on this windy afternoon. I have Greg Belote. The reason why there is the term Act of Greg. We are the Funky Shirt Crew, and today we're going to talk that engineering stuff. So first and foremost, you know what type of impact one has to make to have the term an act of Greg created? I was I was wondering if I don't know if we can talk about it because that's before my time. But what happened to even make that come about?
Yeah. The way I think about it is that I've kind of built a prison around myself, where, through the course of the last 9 years, we've been so constrained by the number of engineers we've had that we've made a lot of decisions that were kind of like 80-20 fixes where, software will do 80%, we'll have a human do the rest. And we built a lot of those things, and then we've gotten a lot of growth and haven't had the time to go back and deal with all the 20%. So there's just tons of institutional knowledge and experience trapped in my head that I'm trying to get out. But it means that I'm the bottleneck on random parts of the business. Super flattering. Definitely makes my head a little bigger. Yeah.
So you essentially the process. I think about the three of you, and the amount that you get done on your own as individuals, and when you really sit back and look at it, it's that's definitely the task for a team of people or a series of companies that tackle a different area. How did you was that always you?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been a pretty small company overall, and we push ourselves to do as much as we can. And I've had a lot of practice doing these random little things, but we've throughout the years been kind of sometimes it was just forced in terms of we weren't making enough money or we weren't feeling comfortable raising more money. So there's a certain degree of control that you lose if you try to raise too big of a round, especially before we figured out kind of what the levers are to grow our business. And so that forced us to focus more on tools and scaling things. And part of that is if I can do it in 5 minutes, then I'll do it in 5 minutes. But eventually I have to do that, 100 times, and it becomes a lot. So that's definitely a big goal of mine, is to put that part of the history into the history books and have a whole team do what I do.
I wonder how far back this goes. What's the earliest memory of you just being super process engineer person? Were you reprogramming Ataris?
Oh, that far back, yeah. That's a good question. I mean, in terms of company stuff, since 2012, 13, there are things that I would just do to kind of set up campaigns. And I mean, the whole moving money, in the early days, we had no actual code structure to represent payments. It was just we had an escrow account, and I would log into our payment processor and type things in. But I mean, I've always been kind of a meticulous person, and have a certain degree of laziness and wanting to get things done where, if I can just do it, I'll just do it, which has been kind of, I mean, the cost of that is that, 5 years ago, if I had just taken a little extra time to fix things, I wouldn't be talking about it right now. But it's hard. It's really hard because oftentimes there'll be a fire, and you don't always know how hot can that fire burn. A company, for example, experiencing a problem, it's very real, very painful. You want to help that person, but trying to balance that individual situation against the hundreds of other ones that will exist if you don't fix it has been really hard.
Finding that balance.
It's taken a lot of pain and learning experiences, but yeah, I mean, it's nice because I mean it's all a function of our growth too. So, um, they're good problems, but they're still problems.
And you've been here since the very beginning. So the wide eyed, we're going to make a change phase to the man, this is taking forever to the I think we've hit a stride to now. Like how have the how has that roller coaster been? Like what were the feelings then, in the middle, and now?
Definitely lots of delusion gluing things together. I mean, back in 2012, we thought this would happen really quickly, that we were on a rocket ship that's going off. Like in the law, the SEC was supposed to make rules in 2013, the very beginning of the year. And so we thought, of course, they're going to make rules at the very beginning. It took 4 years. So, it definitely has been hard, right? Like we, nothing like really wavered our like belief that this thing should exist in the world, and that like long term this is how companies are going to be getting capital for the business is online and through large numbers of investors. But it's been it was hard like in the early years when we would be raising like $30,000 for a company, and then we'd have to go out and convince other companies that they should take the time to be on our platform because we might get them 8 investors. Like it was a different world back then, but it was a different market back then where there's just a completely different field of players and hardly anyone doing what we were doing. But I mean, we've always had like glimmers of hope that something was like 6 to 9 months out. So we were always like working towards that. And for me and Nick, we're very stubborn and very optimistic at the same time. So we've been staying the course. But we've lost a lot of people along the way quite reasonably, because if you join in 2015 and you think it's gonna be completely different in 2016 and it takes many years, it's not everyone's in it and are incentivized in the same way, so it's been a journey.
Yeah, is are things shaping up the way you envisioned them, or is more so over or under?
Certainly it's happening slower, but yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, yes, that we're seeing companies uh, you know reach out to their communities and find people online who want to support what they're doing, and many investors who are investing because they want these things to exist in the world. They want these founders to have a shot at what they're trying to build. And that's really nice to see that it didn't shift towards the we're going to try to beat the S&P 500 type mindset. But we thought that community at the same time would be a lot more of a big deal. Like it's been a lot harder building what we want to build. In the early days, having this notion of the crowd isn't just dumb money. It can be smart money. It can help the business. Has been like a very like head in the clouds abstract thing that has been hard for us to figure out. Like how do you help a founder tap into 1,000 investors on a regular basis, and take advantage of all the people who are wanting you to have a successful company. But we still think that is like the nugget of what's really important. That's going to separate us from being like a PayPal with contracts versus the place that like every business wants to tap into when building a company.
I think it's a very beautiful thing, and it's one of those positive points of reference that become like a really solid bat signal for, excuse me, especially like I can't speak for everyone, but where I've come from, this is it didn't exist. There weren't any real examples of this being a thing. You being able to, you think of the friends and family round as like, well, I know my friends and family. Nobody has like just $100 to just throw in. But then when you mix in the content elements, the social media, the ability to find new folks, and friends and family is bigger than just blood relatives nowadays. It's those supporters, those people that really buy into your mission. And so to have a platform like this that allows you to not only build community everywhere, but then also give them the opportunity to invest in this little bit of world changing you're trying to do. No matter how big the idea is or how small the idea is, there's people behind you that are like, hey, let's try, and here's my support. I I think a lot of it is just it feels very too good. So even when you're saying like the community aspect kind of hit slowly, it does feel very too good to be true because we've never had really an example for it. But yeah, I'm glad that people are starting to come around now.
Yeah. It's been slow, but really rewarding to kind of see it happening,
Yeah.
especially when I'm kind of in my bunker, just trying to keep things flowing
Yeah.
and to have everyone else like working and making great content and being in different cities and just getting founders who kind of share that philosophy of like my customers should be part owners, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and there's like a certain momentum behind it that is more than just like one person's will. Trying, you know, um, it's something people want, and it's hard to do, but the more it happens, the easier it is.
Yes. What's the future look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought about it in terms of like, um, you know, if you were to start a company today, you'd buy a domain name, you'd register a Twitter account. Like one day, like one of those things should be opening a WeFunder account, and maybe you're not actively raising money on day one, but it's there for people to follow what you're doing, to potentially invest in your company. I mean, we like really benefited in the early days of just having constantly a fundraise open, where our users happened to be accredited investors, so they could invest in WeFunder, and it was like never something we pushed on the people. It was just in our footer. There was like a link, you could click it, then you could see an invest button, and people would invest. And what would happen is, just as we're building the company that we want to build, people would discover that, they'd get interested, and they'd invest, and it would create this kind of stream of money that was paying for our like expenses and salaries. And so it was really empowering for us because we could focus more on the company, less on the fundraising. And I think that's a really valuable thing, that if you're like founders, like they start their companies because there's something they want to do, and that's not raise money for their company.
Yeah.
And making it so that it's like a no-brainer for someone to just open an account and just have that there when their friends and family and people they've worked with in the past, or users who come to the website for the first time, can see that and be, and get what they're doing and put in $100 and have that accumulate into something meaningful. That's where I want to see it going.
Yeah, I was thinking about just how it constantly evolves based on the user, because now that any and everybody can utilize it, the folks that are really creative and have been super scrappy, they're approaching it in different ways and like looking at it from an entirely different perspective. Even when you think about like testing the waters, normally you'd say that maybe WeFunder isn't the greatest like pre-seed tool because it's best to have traction, you sell the idea. But even what you're saying about like being able to follow this page and watch these updates, like been telling folks like, hey man, this should be like your landing page and just as powerful as your website, like constantly updating. It could be a newsletter in a sense. Let people see how you're coming along, because a lot of the times people are buying into process and the person that is building more than the product itself. So it's one of those cool opportunities to be front and center, and then it's like, you know what? I've been watching this guy for like 3 months. He is grinding. Here's my $100 just because, man, keep going. Like, maybe this little bit is the reason why you continue to try to solve that problem, because we have, moonshots that are, that's not complete. They still have to do the research and things, but everything's a moonshot at the end of the day because you really don't know if you can do it or not, especially coming from these more underrepresented areas. But to know that you now have the opportunity to at least try. And as long as you are very genuine and organic, there are folks that will begin to find you and want to be a part of just seeing you try. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, I did the same thing with Susan Nick. I think it's really good for founders, like the perspective for where you guys are coming from. How do you balance the sort of like goal and dream and like this is how I want it to be and this is how I see it with the actual experience that you're in, the actual reality. Like things aren't going as planned. I have to adapt. I have to adjust. Because some people hold on to this, never adapt, and flail out because it's not what I wanted or not what I thought it was. And then others have the ability to not hold on to that so much and just whatever comes my way, I can give it my all. How do you balance the two? Because you can't let go of the dream, but you also can't stop.
That's a real good question. Like, I'm thinking about it just from my own experience of what happened, which may or may not be the best thing for other people to do, but there's definitely been this kind of waxing and waning over the years where when we've been in periods where it felt like the company was in jeopardy, like we're going to run out of money unless we change things around. And that's like definitely the mode of, we just got to make it work,
Yes.
But I've always, I think, benefited's not the right word, but appreciated the choices that we've made along the way where we, like this is really clear before the law change happened, where we were doing like this rich person crowdfunding where if you were an accredited investor, if you were someone who had $1 million, you could invest. If you weren't, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Go get some money and then come back. And like we were trying to build a platform where anyone could invest, but like we couldn't do that. So the route we took was, well, let's make this rich person thing, and then we'll learn a lot of lessons along the way. But it's all about the future of when this law takes effect and anyone investing. And there are a lot of choices we made that were suboptimal back, in those days. And I just really appreciate now having, survived and fast forwarded half a decade that, there's just, it's been helpful to always have that clear idea of like, why are we here? And like, why is this important? Like, what is the thing that is motivating us to like do this painful thing, which is starting a company? And always just like at least have that in the back of your head. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, especially in like the early days when it's just you and maybe a few other people. Like you don't have the luxury of thinking big. It's like, how do I get a customer? And I mean, there's a lot of things that we did where, we would be very eager to do whatever a company wanted, like in terms of like building custom things or hard coding things in the code base just to support, a particular preference that a company had that we wanted to do business with. And like there's a school of thought that you could say, don't do custom software, always, like we could have just had like, this is how you raise money and you're going to have to do it or not. Which would have been a mistake for us, and along the way, we found things that a lot of people wanted to do that we eventually rolled into a product. But, like back then, it's like we'd hard code things in the code and it's ugly, but, got the job done. Yes. And you can always hire more people and fix those problems later. But that's not an option if you don't get past that.
Yeah, you're always going to end up doing more than you expected if you really want it. I completely understand that, man. It's been years of doing things like for free, or like it's like, yeah, I can do this for 300, and then you realize you probably should do more. Like, if I just do that, it's not going to be the best look, and so now I have to do this even bigger project because I need you to look good. Like, it's good for me, it's good for you, and I think that's just ingrained in some folks. Like, it's not taught. You just feel it. It's lovely, and so to have people like that behind a business like this, it's the only reason why it's successful. Yeah. And it's not is and y'all were the perfect people to kind of get into this and kind of grow it, because had it just been about the numbers, it would not have been the community focused growing thing that it is now.
Yeah, my wife has a really good like saying for things like this. When she's in like the music world, and sometimes people ask her like, what does it take to be a professional musician? She's not a professional musician, but just like in that world. And like her advice is like, you can't be too good for anything. Like, like there's a job that's paying, you take it if you need the money. Like, you can't come in and be like, well, I'm better than doing it this way. This is my vision. I'm gonna be pure. Like that's gonna be real hard. Yeah, you got to put the ego aside and just get things done.
Yeah, make it happen. So, Greg, I super appreciate the time. I super appreciate the opportunity being a part of this whole thing, and I look forward to all the things that we build next and all the people that we help moving forward. Like I'm sold. I'm like you guys got to kick me out. This is like I feel like I've been working all my life to be a part of something like this because I've always believed the power is in the people and the and anything you're looking for you can find it in your community, and just constantly building each other up, each one teach one, each one grow one, and to be a part of a platform where that is the whole business idea, is greatly appreciated. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your words. I'm pretty sure there's someone out there is going to take this and go run through a wall and just make it happen.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been fun, and just really happy to have you on the team.
Thank you. Thank you.